Hello there, and welcome to episode 146 of BigRedBarel's Geek Speak podcast, the place for all your nerdy needs on BigRedBarel.com. My name is Diarmuid. I am your dangerously darling host for this episode. Joining me today is the jaunty, jubilant juggernaut of Jo.
Hello! It's nice that
doing,
you're
Jo?
the host today. Yeah, I'm alright. Yeah.
All the pressure's off you. It's back on me again.
I can just chill and not worry about anything. I'll probably still say something stupid as usual, but it's all good.
Allowed.
It's all good.
Allowed. As the not host or the main host, that's fine. I have to keep it straight and narrow though.
Yeah, you've got to keep us all in line.
Unfortunately, Alex, the Baroness of Butts herself, won't be joining us today. However, we do have the eerily eldritch escaping girl of Elle.
Hello. Insert creepy
Hello.
Yay!
Welcome back. It has been too long.
It's been super long.
How are you doing? How's everybody doing this weekend?
I'm good.
Caffeinated.
Tired. Game
Caffeinated.
launch coming
Good.
up. It's pretty full on at work.
I can imagine.
But it's all good.
Pretty tired. All right, I'm going to kick straight into the time waster of the week because I want to discuss this. I've wanted to discuss this for weeks, and I think we've put it in here and there, but I really wanted to get to the end of it now. Now that it's over, I wanted to kind of get to the end of it. So I know, Jo, you're aware of Jordan Vogt-Roberts.
Absolutely.
Elle, are you aware?
No, let's lead in. I'm terrible with people.
So he is a director, a fairly young director. He's only done a few movies at the moment. I think The Kings of Summer and Kong Skull Island are probably his biggest ones.
Yes! Kong!
And Jo is a huge fan because of that.
Yeah. Because of Kong, basically.
Exactly.
He did such a wonderful job with that movie. And he's got a fantastic beard.
Yes, he has an incredible beard. If you want to Google image search him, you'll swoon.
I will Google.
Swooned, and I'm, Anyway.
I will Google.
So, Jordan Vogt-Roberts has been a nerd most of his life. And he loves, similar to me, and I believe similar to Jo, and I'm hoping similar to you, Elle, he loves the Metal Gear series.
How could you not?
From Hideo Kojima, if you're not aware. Recently, it reached its 31st anniversary from the series starting. Now, he's in the middle of pitching a movie version of Metal Gear to the studios. As part of that, he commissioned a number of artists to create concept art for not just the movie. Like, the way he described it was, obviously, there might be scenes from the movie that he wants to get concepts of, but also he wants to kind of get the idea across of what the tone of the movie is going to be. So on Twitter, about a month ago, he started off this 31 days of Metal Gear concept art celebration for this anniversary. And I've put the tweet in the agenda, and it will be on the notes when the podcast goes live. And in it, he basically has a number of different concept artists submit works of just different parts of Metal Gear, whether it's from the early history, whether it's from the Solid Snake era, or whether it goes into the past, into the 60s era with Big Boss, all of these different characters. And he also has a few audio clips, including from the voice actress who did Sniper Wolf. He got David Hayter back recently to do a Solid Snake kind of codec call as well.
Nice.
It was all really, really cool. And I just wanted people to be aware of it. I've been liking every single post he's put up about this stuff to try and get people to look at this stuff. It's just really
It's super cool.
It's beautiful. Some of the artwork is lush.
It's so stunning. Absolutely
It really
stunning.
is.
If a Metal Gear movie is going to happen, he needs to make it. Like, 100%, it needs to be him making it. So everything crossed that happens.
As well as this time waster, I'll add in a kind of an addendum as well. He recently did a podcast for Collider Video, or not a video, I should say, a video interview with Collider. And I'll see if I can find the link to that and add it in as well. Where he discusses the movie. Now, obviously, he can't go into details because he doesn't want to spoil the bloody thing. But he just goes into his ideas for what he believes a Metal Gear movie should be, what he believes video game movies should be, but specifically Metal Gear, and his philosophy for kind of attacking it and how he wants to bring people in and how he wants to kind of satiate hardcore fans like us, whereas also not being... or being able to bring in new fans who are not aware of this universe at all. And the way he talks and the passion he talks with, it's infectious. He is incredibly you really want to root for him. You want him to get this bloody job.
Yeah.
You really
do. Absolutely. He would be the only choice in my mind for this. Like, if there's anyone that kind of loves the Metal Gear series, then it's him. You know, he's absolutely just in love with that entire series. And he's a big gamer in general anyway. Like, one thing that I didn't notice on my first watch of Kong Skull Island, but if you watch it again, and he did a video, I think, highlighting a lot of this, there's so many video game references in that movie. Mm-hmm. Like, the mountain from Journey is in it, and things like that. Like, he peppered the film with all these little nods to his favourite video games. And I just think that's super cool. And he's a proper creative, interesting individual, and he's mates with Kojima, so that helps. Like, you know, that's gotta help.
It's also nice that we're seeing, like, directors become popular nowadays that are nerds and that are have grown up at the same time as us and have experienced the same video games as us and stuff like that. Like Duncan Jones as well as another one who's...
Well, you know, he's making Rogue Trooper now, which is awesome. Like, that's super great. Obviously, I can't talk about it at all, but but that's super cool. And yeah, really, really chuffed that that's happening.
All right, we're going to move on to the news. That's enough time wasting for this week, and we're going to go on to newsing for this week. And I wanted to bring up something that I'm kind of disappointed Alex isn't here, because I know she loves board games. But we have Elle now.
Hello. Yeah.
So, the Power Rangers Heroes of the Grid board game has recently released on Kickstarter, and it reached its goal within 8 hours.
How
amazing.
I'm kind of
How
shocked
did it
by
not?
that. So,
Power Rangers.
Well, true. It's kind of one of those cases where it's like, yeah, just put a kind of, you know, an old favourite on a board game and it's going to
Nostalgia's
sell.
a powerful
it's
draw.
Sell something mad. This is from Renegade Game Studios. I'm not really fully aware of them. I'm pretty novice in terms of board games. In fact, I know practically nothing. So I'm going to leave you guys talk about this more than me. But I just wanted to mention that the board game itself is going to be a cooperative game for 2 to 5 players. And the initial, like, the price on the Kickstarter to get the actual board game out of it at the end is $75 or £59. And that excludes the shipping. But also, when you get the base game, you get the main 5 Power Rangers: blue, red, pink, black, and yellow. If you pay a little bit more, I don't know the details of the stretch goals, but if you pay a little bit more, you get the green and white Ranger as well as a few of the Megazords as well, if you go for an even more limited edition. But that was recently put onto Kickstarter. It got its funding goal in 8 hours. Another board game success story on Kickstarter, hopefully.
I must admit, I hadn't heard of the game studio at all myself, and I've just looked them up, and they've done quite a few games that I'd heard of, things like Topiary and Fireworks and a couple of other things. And they did Arboretum. A lot of people might have heard of that one with the trees. It comes back to Power Rangers. Like, I always had an issue with Power Rangers from the very beginning. Why is the girl the pink one?
It's because it was very much of its time. Also, you can't forget about Trini. Trini was in yellow and she was amazing. She was my favourite. But unfortunately, certain things are very of their time.
Yes, I mean, I remember being a kid when this was on telly. Like, I was born in 81, so in the 90s I would have been like a teenager. And I remember seeing this thinking, why is the girl pink? Like, it bothered me then, and it still bothers me still. Because it's just, and I remember it being like, she was like proper girl, you know, and there were jokes about that she was a girl, and I was like, oh god, because I wanted to love that show. Power Rangers are cool, and they have Megazords and all that nonsense, and, you know, kaiju and things, and it was just like a proper throwback to classic kaiju movies. It just bothered me, that's all, I guess. A little bit too high school for me at times, I guess.
It all depends, like, what version you're looking, because obviously the stuff in Japan can be quite different. Some of it to appeal to a more Western audience, but I was a wee bairn when they came out, and I was hooked. I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to get these on VHS. This is the best.
Yeah, video, whoa! I just had Dino Riders. Dino Riders on video and Dino Riders toys. They were the best.
I just remember the awful movie, Ivan Ooze. Oh my goodness, that was a bad movie.
But yeah, I mean, obviously lots of people really want this board game, so
clearly.
Sure.
Clearly.
Okay.
And Elle, you mentioned that this isn't the only Kickstarter, hopefully, success story for board games on this week as well. What was the other game you mentioned?
So I'm a bit of a Kickstarter slave, I'd say.
Mm-hmm. I have to stay away from it.
My bank must look at me like, what are you actually spending your money on?
Kickstarter shows up a lot on your bank statements. What's going on?
I don't know if anyone else has come from the halcyon days of internet memes, but Trogdor the Burninator, was a dragon. He burninated the villagers. This will be very niche, but Trogdor, the board game, is coming to my house. It is amazing.
Sure.
So for those of you out there who adore just really random, niche, nostalgic glimpses of your past, please do keep an eye on Kickstarter, because they have so many interesting board games coming out.
Oh, there's been some cracking ones on there as well, like things like Gloomhaven, Subterra. I mean, Kickstarter, there's a lot of garbage on there, but there's some absolute gold. Little corkers. Yeah, there's some real gold. So, definitely don't discount Kickstarter if you're a board game fan, for sure.
True facts.
It does seem to be like maybe not the cause, but certainly one of the fuel for kind of keeping the board game rise going.
It definitely helps, for sure.
It started in the last few years, but then it sort of, Kickstarter allows creators to get that fan base behind them and get these properties out.
I think it removes some of the fiscal risk, doesn't it? When you know that you're going to have X amount of orders that you can fulfill, instead of fronting the cash yourself. So I think it's really good for allowing people who might not have been able to develop board games to do that. I think it's really nice to see. And we've had some really interesting concepts come out, like Unbroken. Unbroken's been a recently funded Kickstarter project. I think it was kickstarted in April, but it's basically a solo dungeon crawler board game. I've been waiting for something like that for ages, so they instantly got my money. But it's nice to see people doing really quirky, interesting concepts that break the mold.
It is super cool. I think the last one I backed was Rising Sun.
Oh, nice.
Which is stunning. Oh my god, I got like all the expansions and everything. It's absolutely stunning game. But it was a lot of money, and so I'm like, I need to stay away. I need to stay away from Kickstarter for a little while, I think.
Yeah, it's not good for your bank balance.
No, it definitely isn't. Like, Dark Souls was bad enough, and then Rising Sun, I just couldn't not. And then I was like, oh god, I've spent way too much money. So yeah.
Speaking of IP being converted from one format into another,
nice
we're going
segue.
to move on to another.
Nice.
Yeah, I work really hard at these. I have to write it down, have to flow chart it and everything. It's all over the place. So Netflix are making a Witcher TV series, and recently that was announced back in May of 2017. Excuse me, and these are going to be based on the books rather than the video game. Or at least that's what people thought initially. Audition scripts were recently released onto the internet, leaked for this show. And a number of fans got a hold of them, read them, and they're not very happy, as fans tend to get.
Yeah. It seems to be the thing of the day, doesn't it? Like, fans complaining about stuff.
Do like a rage.
So the scripts contain 2 scenes from the show, or at least we don't know if they're actually going to be in the show. At least I'll get onto that. There's 2 scenes involving the characters. One involving Yennefer and Geralt just having a kind of a witty exchange as they're getting ready for a formal party. Yeah. As they are wanting to do. And another one is between Yennefer and a king who apparently she doesn't like. People have taken those scripts. I haven't read the scripts myself, so I can't really weigh in on this particular aspect of it. But fans have taken those scripts, read them, and they feel that they're not reflecting the characters correctly, or at least the character descriptions and other little details from those sequences suggest that they're actually taking quite a lot from the games rather than the books, and people are obviously complaining about that. Showrunner Lauren Schmidt-Hirsch?
Hishrik? I
don't know. Anyway, she recently took to Twitter just to kind of say that these, they said that, or it's possible that these scripts would leak, so they're not really containing anything that will appear in the show, and they're sort of just kind of basic stuff just to get an idea So it's not really a reflection of the show. But even if they do start kind of going more towards the games rather than the books, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing.
No, and I think, to be honest, I think the fans are being a little bit elitist here as well, because what they have to understand is that Netflix are obviously going to be throwing a ton of money at this, and they're going to want to create something that a wide audience are going to enjoy. And let's be honest, more people have engaged with the games than the books. As good as the books are, I haven't read them myself, but apparently they're very good, and they're very popular in Poland and elsewhere. But they're never going to hit the heights of the games, because the games are a behemoth. They're mammoth. And so who can blame them for wanting to kind of veer a little bit towards material that a wider audience are going to be able to appreciate?
Yeah.
But to be honest, like, I don't understand why they're having auditions at all, at least for Geralt. Like, just hire Mads Mikkelsen, just be done with it. Get Mads Mikkelsen in. He can do it. It'll be fine.
I think it'd be interesting to see what they come out with. I think Netflix have been very, very good recently in some of their series that they've been putting out. And it's such a delicate balance to strike, being loyal to the core fan base, but also being open to drawing in that audience that hasn't interacted with the IP before.
Exactly.
And this is actually related to what we were talking earlier about with Jordan Vogt-Roberts and the way he was talking about Metal Gear. And spoilers for that video that I mentioned. In it, he kind of says that you kind of have to steer into the weirdness and the kind of the uniqueness of the property that you're going with. So a lot of people have, in terms of The Witcher, obviously, there's a lot of kind of magic stuff and like how they're going to incorporate that. With Metal Gear, there's also a lot of really weird stuff that general audiences might not go along with. And his argument is you kind of have to steer into that, because the reason people like this universe in the first place is because of that stuff.
Yeah.
So similarly with The Witcher, the reason people like The Witcher and the games, for instance, is because of a lot of the stuff that they've put into those games. So if you steer into that weirdness, you'll kind of, you will almost like through osmosis, you'll pull in those audience members. You'll kind of pull in the people that they'll see what's unique about it, and they probably just haven't been exposed to that universe before. So they're not going to know what to expect. So when you throw weird stuff at them, it's not like they're going to immediately balk at it and walk away. They're watching this show in the first place. They've come in the door. Now show them what you actually are made of rather than trying to hide it.
It's a good point to make.
But yeah, also, I think, like I say, it's far too early for anyone to be getting their knickers in a twist about some leaked audition scripts. Like, just wait. I mean, yeah, it's easy to get disappointed by adaptations of things if they're not quite how you imagine it. And that's the thing, like, the thing with fans that we're seeing a lot with, some of the toxic sides of fandom is that people get very attached to things and they have their own image in their mind of how a thing should be, how it should be represented. And if it doesn't hew exactly to that, then people get really upset. And obviously it's silly in my point of view, but I can understand the attachment. So I get where they're coming from. But then I'm also like, just chill your boots. It's okay.
For me, the problem with fandom at the moment is this idea of ownership, as if fans own what's going on, as if the creators can't change things, or if they do change things, they might change them in the wrong way. And fans are the final arbiters of what's allowed and what isn't.
It's nuts.
And that's not the way it should work. Yeah. I mean... Yeah, I think we're preaching to the choir at this audience, but it's one of those cases where, it's one of those cases where it's just disappointing to see, especially when you know that the majority of the fandom isn't like this. It's kind of disappointing to see that the screeching that goes on the internet. That's what people hear. They don't hear the calm voices in the back. Kind of saying, no, this is fine. Let's see what they do. I think
proportionally it's quite a small majority, but it's always the small majority that shouts the loudest. Exactly. People just need to wait and be patient. It's not going to be the final product, pre-production. Not at all. Have a tea. Have a biscuit.
We seem to be on a roll of IPs being converted from one thing to another, so we're going to keep that going.
Another fabulous segue.
Let me rub my hands in anticipation.
You keep pointing them out. They're not going to be good.
Yeah, Joel. But I can't help myself. Sorry, continue.
Vampyr. the game that Alex has been playing recently. I don't know if she's given her final thoughts on that, because I don't know if she's cleared it yet. But I haven't played the game, so I'm kind of basing my opinions on what she said, which is that it's a good game.
Yeah, this is the one that I wanted to play, but it kind of passed me by because it released when there was a ton of other stuff going on and I just kind of missed it. But I really like Don't Nod. Like, they're really good developers and it looked really interesting.
Well, now you're going to have the opportunity to not only play it, but watch it.
Hey!
So, the vampire game that we're talking about, made by Don't Nod, as Joe just mentioned, is being developed into a TV series. And it's being developed by Fox 21.
Okay.
No idea. It's Fox, so they're probably going to cancel it after one season. Yeah. It's really, really good. Boom!
Everybody drink!
Get the clothes.
Involved in the project is the MacG.
MacG.
The reason I know him is because of stuff like the old Charlie's Angels remakes and things like that. And that's
Terminator
not great.
Salvation.
But he is also involved in shows that I do like. Nikita, Chuck, Supernatural, Human Target. I like all of those shows. So I'm not going to balk at the idea of him.
As he's developed more of his TV career, I think he has matured as an artist, shall we say?
He was also involved, I think he might be, he's definitely producing it. I don't know if he's the director of it, but he was involved in that Netflix movie, The Babysitter.
Oh, I think that was meant to be relatively decent, wasn't it? I
haven't seen it. I watched it a few months back, and it is very, very good. It's very tongue-in-cheek, and it is actually quite MacG, but it actually suits him in this case. Now, Vampire is a bit more of a kind of a serious take on things, so I don't know how that's going to work, but hopefully, like, with that kind of, with a big studio like Fox behind it, and a pretty big name in MacG behind it, with a good pedigree of stuff that he's been involved in, I'm hopeful.
Yeah, I mean, one to watch, one to keep an eye out for.
It's an interesting idea, kind of a vampire story set in the middle of the Spanish flu in London. It'll be interesting to see how they take that on. Yeah. The fact that it's being handled by Fox probably means it's going to be on, well, it could be on anything, Amazon or Netflix as well. So when it does come out, I do hope to see it, and hopefully they do a good job.
I'm looking forward to it, because there's been a little bit of a resurgence in the kind of darker side of intellectual properties. Specifically, something that I'm also looking out for, which is in a similar vein, is the new series of Castlevania that's coming out on Netflix.
Yes.
Oh, cool!
Oh, dude, keep bringing me these series with vampires and monsters, and just keep making them.
Yeah, totally. Like a bit of Cthulhu, love it.
The only thing about that bloody Castlevania series that annoyed me was how freaking short it was.
It was so good. Oh, just I can't contain.
I didn't watch it. Is it still on Netflix?
It's on Netflix, and it is. It's only like 4 episodes.
Yeah. Okay, I will look for it.
Or something ridiculous like that.
Gold.
It's incredibly short, but it is.
It's gold.
I'm doing the whole chef kiss thing.
Yeah.
You know, I'm doing that right now. You can't see it, but just
the
imagine
sexy
that.
salt man.
It's
just.
Exactly.
Sprinkling it on. Yeah, the animation is absolutely glorious as well.
All right, we're going to move on to our final news story, which is a story I'm particularly interested in.
Here's another thing that's
this.
on my list that I need to watch.
Exactly.
I have no time.
In the last few weeks, I talked about a mini-series called The Alienist.
I want to watch this so bad.
Luke Evans, Dakota Fanning, they're all in it. It's very good. You can go back and listen to my thoughts on that. It's a really good show. And it was on Netflix. It was originally developed, I believe, by TNT in America. It did so well that they've decided to do another one. Yay. So the writer of the book, Caleb Carr, when he wrote it, he actually wrote that first book and then a number of others. So this is just kind of adapting the next one. So thankfully, if this does well, there'll be more books to adapt.
Good.
So basically, it's another story for Dr. Laszlo Chrysler, Bruhl's character, and his gang of people that he has investigating these weird and kind of dark crimes in New York at the turn of the century. It's around that time. And it is an incredibly good show, and I'm really looking forward to the fact that they're making a sequel to it. No idea yet on the release date for this, but to be honest, I don't mind that. I'm one of those people who will wait patiently for this and enjoy it when it comes out.
I'm going to watch The Alienist. After this, I'm going to watch one, and yeah, it's happening. It's happening.
It should. Elle, are you aware of this show?
I have seen it. It's come up on my suggested watching, but I've not actually taken the time to do it. So I'm thinking maybe tomorrow.
Do it.
Nice Sunday morning watching.
It's been sat there on my watch list for ages, and whenever I fire up Netflix, I'm like, yeah, I must watch that. And then I'm like, oh, look, Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
I've been gorging myself on the new animated series that keep on coming out on Netflix, like Final Space or Disenchanted.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's meant to be very good, Final Space. Oh my God,
I cried so hard. You wouldn't expect it. You wouldn't expect it to be what it was, but it is so very, very good.
Excellent.
Yarp. It is very, very good. I'm going to discuss that soon, probably next week. Not this week. This week, we're going to move on to some topics to discuss.
Again, with the segues, man. Killing it.
Stop pointing them out.
No.
All right, so we're going to move on to the topics for this week, and I will go first, if you don't mind.
Certainly.
I'm going to discuss a film that I had wanted to see for quite some time that was out in the cinemas, and by the time I did go and see it, it was like the one screening that day. So it's down to the case where it's probably out of the cinema already, which is kind of annoying. But it's an incredible movie. It's called Hotel Artemis. It stars Jodie Foster, Sterling K. Brown, Sophia Boutella, our favourite, Jeff Goldblum.
Oh, yeah.
Charlie Day is in it. Dave Bautista.
Oh, nice.
Zachary Quinto. The cast is just
that's a good cast. That's a good cast right there.
And the film is a little bit of a weird one. So it's set in 2028 in Los Angeles. And the world has basically gone the direction it's currently going.
Great.
So it's to the point where the water supply has been privatized, and the company involved in the water in LA, I believe they're called Clearwater or something like that, are currently locking down the water supply for all of the residents, and the residents are rioting. And it's turning into a bigger and bigger riot as the movie goes on. That's kind of happening in the background. In the foreground, you have the Hotel Artemis, which is a dingy-looking kind of place, really, from the outside. But once you get inside, it's what's basically a criminal's hospital. That's the only way of describing it. So all of the rooms are have murals on the wall of different locations. So there's like Tahiti, there's Nice, and the people who stay in the rooms are criminals. So rather than give their names, the people in the hotel refer to them by their rooms. So, for instance, Sophia Boutella is a French assassin in the movie. And she's referred to as Nice because she's staying in that hotel room.
Right.
So that's kind of the idea. Jodie Foster plays the nurse. You do kind of learn her name later in the movie, but she's referred to as the nurse for most of the movie. Dave Bautista is the orderly. And he's referred to as Everest.
Right.
And he is a freaking mountain in this bloody movie as well.
Yeah.
As you can imagine with Dave Bautista.
Yeah.
The film is set in, it's kind of like a day in the life of this sort of hotel. And like the nurse keeps referring to it as any other Wednesday. But all of these kind of criminals come in for various reasons. So Sterling K. Brown, he plays a character named Sherman, but he's known as Wakiki in the, because that's his room. He and his brother are robbing a bank, and it goes wrong, and the brother gets shot. So he realizes the only place he can go to get his brother kind of seen to and taken care of is this hotel, and he happens to be a member. So they go there, and that's where the story kind of starts, and that's how we're introduced to the hotel at the start. As I said, there's multiple other criminals there at the same time. So Charlie Day is in this movie, and he plays Apaluca, or something like that. I can't remember the name of the location. But he is a weapons dealer. And he happens to be in town for something, and he wants to get out because of the riots that are happening. As I mentioned, Sophia Boutella is an assassin. There's multiple other people in the rooms as well, and we get introduced to them as they come and go. And all the time, in between all of them, is the nurse. So Jodie Foster is playing a far older character than she normally plays. And she's taking care of all of these criminals and trying to heal them up so that they can be let out back into the world. Like, you don't think just from that initial setup that there could be much of a story or what would happen. But it's just like a day in the life of this hotel, and it's just so well acted. Like, you have, I've already listed the actors in the film, and they're all impressive. They all kind of do a really good job with their characters. Each one of them is interesting. There isn't a dud in the list. It's just incredible. Things start to go downhill for the hotel when the nurse decides to allow in a cop who's been injured during the riots, who happens to find the hotel downstairs. There's a reason she lets this cop in, but we don't know it initially. But after that, things start to escalate and go out of control. And from there, the movie kind of kicks on. And it's fun. It's dramatic. There's some surprisingly emotional bits. Dave Bautista is fantastic as Everest. He is a huge man-mountain, as you can imagine. But he is so nice. He loves the nurse. The nurse is like a surrogate mother to him. So anyone who kind of backtalks her or something, he just gives this look that looks like he could honestly kill them. It is, and he could. Like that's he is outstanding in this movie. Jodie Foster is fantastic. She carries it. She has plenty of help, but she carries the entire movie. And you just want her to be safe. You want her to survive all of this madness that's going on around her. I don't know what else to say, only that this is really worth seeing. It is incredibly well directed. It is incredibly well written. Like, that's probably the most impressive thing, just how good the writing is on this particular movie. The acting is outstanding, as I've already mentioned. Yeah, I highly recommend this movie. Highly recommend it. It is incredible.
I did see the advert for this when I was sat, because I've got a Cineworld card. So I generally go and watch whatever is in the cinemas. But this one did actually pass me by. I've been a little bit busy to go and do the filming.
Yeah, same.
But yeah, anything with Charlie Day and Jeff Goldblum in, I'm going to watch.
Yes. I'm sure this is going to end up on like Netflix or Amazon or one of those streaming services very, very soon. And when it does, I strongly recommend people get to see it because it is well worth it. I've just found out that the director, his name is Drew Pearce. This is his first movie.
Oh, wow.
And for his first directorial debut, it's really impressive. It is really, really good. I strongly recommend this. Strongly recommend this. Excellent movie. We're going to move on to Joe's topic for this show. Switched?
Yeah, so this is a Netflix series, one of the things I have found time to watch. And it's a Japanese drama series, kind of like a high school drama type thing, I guess you'd say, but with a little bit of a difference in that it's like a body swap drama. So it centers around 4 high school friends. There's Kaga, Koshiro, Ayumi, and Umine isn't really their friend at the beginning, but I'll get to that. So these 3 friends, Ayumi, Kaga, and Koshiro. Koshiro and Kaga are two blokes, and Ayumi is like the young girl. And they've all been close friends since they were children, and it's very sort of Japanese high school drama type thing. But then Umine, who's another girl, she's like quite unhappy. She's a bit of a heavier set girl and she's kind of quite lonely and stuff like this. She and Ayumi suddenly change bodies because of a red moon phenomenon, and it's all kind of a bit sort of sci-fi and weird and twisty. And so Ayumi is suddenly in Umine's body and Umine is in Ayumi's body, and she won't switch back, obviously. And nobody believes Ayumi except for Kaga. And then it's kind of the series, it's a 6-part series. It sort of follows the story of her looking for a way to get her body back, while also being a bit of a sort of J-pop tinged romantic high school drama. So it's actually really quite good. I quite enjoyed it. So the 2 blokes in it, the actors, I'm going to butcher their names, is Daiki Shigioka and Tomohiro Kamiyama. They're actually in a J-pop band called Johnny's West. Okay. I know, right? I know. And apparently they're really big in Japan. Like, I don't know too much about the J-pop scene, but they're like really quite popular. And so that's kind of helped get this series made, I think, and sort of get it out there. And they're very good, like the 2 dudes, and they have like some friction and stuff, but they're all still really close friends, and it's all very high school drama type thing. But yeah, it's really quite interesting. And there's a woman who they encounter who knows a bit about the red moon phenomenon and how the body switching works, and how they may be able to get her body back or they may not, and it's all quite sort of interesting, but it's really quite good. And it has things to say about kind of, it could be quite trite in terms of, it's what's on the inside that counts, it doesn't matter, but it actually kind of sidesteps that quite cleverly and becomes a little bit better than that. And the way the characters are all portrayed is really quite good. The fact that Ayumi, as the longer it goes with Umine in Ayumi's body, the more unhappy she kind of becomes, even though she's got the body she always wanted and the life she always wanted, and she's not lonely anymore. It's not delicately done because it's still very high school drama J-pop, but it's done in a way that's kind of actually relatively mature and quite sort of tender. It is actually, very well done. So if you're at all into Japanese high school drama or otome or things like that, then I would recommend checking it out.
Netflix.
Nice.
It's only a 6-parter, so it's on Netflix.
On Netflix.
So it's a 6-part
switched.
series.
Excellent.
Yeah, and it's kind of, it seems to be sort of standalone, like it's just going to be the one series, like it does have a definitive ending. But it is left open to sort of potentially go to another series, I think, if it does well. But I really enjoyed it, actually. I kind of binged it all in like 2 days because I found it, quite interesting. And I'm a big sucker for anything kind of Japanese anyway. I love Japanese culture and drama and things like that to begin with. And I really enjoyed this. That's my recommendation for this week.
Okay, I might have to give that a watch. Next week I'm going to be home in Ireland, so I'll have plenty of time to watch this while trying to avoid my niece. So that'll be good. All right, so Elle, you have played a game recently.
I have, which has not been at a table. It's been at my desk, at my PC, which has been great. So I've not
nice to change it up every so often, you know.
I've not had that much time to play PC games lately, but I have not been shy in my love and appreciation of Stardew Valley. I have put that game through the ringer. Once you get past 300 hours, there's only so much more that you can do with it's just a beautiful game. But sometimes variety is the spice of life, and you want something a little bit different. So I bought the alpha version of Graveyard Keeper, so I've been playing it as it's being developed, and it's only just recently been released on Steam, so you can all play it too. If you like Stardew Valley, crumbs, you will like this as well. It is amazing. I am a fan of the darker side of things, as per usual, and whereas Stardew Valley is very much the very happy, shiny people, this has this darker, more sarcastic edge to it. The colour palette is a little bit more grungy, but it has that same kind of addictive quality to it. I find Stardew Valley very, very relaxing. There's something about that, building something up from nothing, and Graveyard Keeper does very much the same. It's got the same spirit and essence as Stardew Valley, but in a darker suit, should we say. Just has a different appearance. It's got a couple more mechanics in there, and you can build like a couple of different bits and pieces. So there's more of you figuring out how to lay out your patch that you're given. And there's also a religion mechanic, which has been hilarious. But it's certainly something that I will be spending a lot of hours on. For those of you unfamiliar with Stardew Valley, I guess it is like a tiny little simulation game. Sorry, Di, you were going to chip in with a question.
No, I was just going to say, so you're, unlike Stardew Valley, you're managing a graveyard.
Yeah, so you die, and death kind of puts you into this position in this medieval world, and you have a guide, which is a talking skull, which you dig up, who used to be the previous graveyard keeper. So you have to balance the advice that the skull gives you and trying to do good for the church, whilst trying to hide the fact that you are someone who's from the future who has been just put in this man's body.
Nice.
Such a weird game. So this is from Lazy Bear Games and published by Tiny Build. It was released on the 15th and it's available currently on Steam for about £15 right now.
That's the indie game mark.
Is it worth that, do you think?
So, seeing as I spent about 60 hours on the alpha, I think that's a reasonable bang for your buck.
Yeah, that's pretty.
You're getting quite a bit of it. Yeah,
I would say so. I would say so.
So yeah, if you do enjoy those kind of farming sim games, go for it. Like, it is absolutely just enjoyable. It is a good romp through the graveyard.
Okay. Nice.
I can't see any news about this making its way to any other platforms yet, but I'm assuming, seeing as it did quite well, I saw a tweet from Tiny Build earlier saying that, like, in the first 24 hours it made like £1 million or something like that.
Yeah.
So if it's done that well, hopefully other platforms are not too far behind, and we'll probably see this on Switch and other stuff very soon.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I think it lent itself really, really well to the Switch. I think, nice. It would just be nice to have this portable, because then I'd never stop playing.
Yeah.
Excellent. All right, guys, prepare for the Geek Speak drinking game.
Hey!
Diarmuid is about to talk about Voltron Legendary Defenders again.
Everybody drink!
It happens every single time. Okay, so yeah, really sorry about this, guys, but I have to talk about it.
No, go for it.
Season 7 of Voltron Legendary Defender released on Netflix in the last week or so, and I watched it. And unlike previous seasons, which were quite short, so those seasons have usually made up about maybe 6 or 7 episodes each, this season, season 7, is 13 episodes. And boy howdy, do they fit a lot of stuff into those 13 episodes. It is, I'm not going to keep going back over the various kind of pros that I keep mentioning and the very, very few cons that I keep mentioning, because this series is so worth watching. The talent involved is just outstanding, season upon season. The writing is incredible. It's just a really, really good show. As I mentioned at the end of the season 6 review that I did, the show is not afraid to change things up. And at the end of that season, a huge thing happens, which I won't spoil, which kind of changes the entire structure of the show and kind of how you think about it. So it doesn't just kind of revert back at, like, every 20 minutes the show reverts back to the state as it was at the start. This show is constantly evolving and constantly changing. At the end of season 6, it changed in such a way that really I couldn't see what it was going to do next. And that was exciting. And I'm glad to say that they didn't just do a kind of a quick reversal of whatever change has just happened. They actually just went with it. And it changes the structure of the show in such a way that it's just really interesting. The show has been going on now for multiple seasons. As I said, this is the 7th one. It's still not boring. It's still not trite. It's still not sort of annoying in any way. The characters are constantly evolving and they're not reverting back. Like, they're not kind of developing the characters in such a way and then in order to keep the story going, kind of reversing all of that development. They're just constantly evolving. They're becoming deeper friends. Deeper characters and relationships are happening all across the show, not just in the main core group. I don't know what else to say to sell anyone on this. It is worth your time. The one thing I did want to mention, and it's one of the few things I've been disappointed in this show. So at Comic-Con, they released the trailer for this season. And one of the things that came from that was that one of the main characters, his name is Shiro, he is revealed to be gay. And he is in a long-term relationship with a fellow pilot, Adam. This is, so in flashbacks, it's before the actual show starts proper. In flashbacks, it's revealed that they're in a relationship, but because of Shiro's decision to go on this mission, which ends up kind of kickstarting this entire show, they decide to break up. And I won't kind of spoil anything else, but basically what I wanted to cover was the fact that fans, since the show has been revealed and since it's come out, fans have been kind of, and in my opinion rightly, complaining to the show's writers about the fact that this show unfortunately goes into the trope of bury your gays.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're aware of that trope, I'm guessing. Do I need to explain that to anyone? It's a trope of basically having gay couples in a show, a movie, or whatever, but they're not allowed to be happy. And
see.
It's the thing that was recently put to, if you remember The Last of Us 2, when that was announced.
Yeah.
People just assumed that the character that Ellie is with at the start of that movie that they released at E3 is going to die. And the audience are kind of annoyed with the fact that gay characters are just seemingly never allowed to be happy and never allowed to just be together. They're always broken up in some way, either via just breakups or by, unfortunately, what happens a lot is the gay characters are killed off. And it's just, it is a trope at this stage. It's like fridging them almost. It's just an annoying writer's trope that's coming up constantly, and people were hoping, well, I don't think people even expected it to happen here, but it did. And since then, the writers have come out and apologized for that, and they said that they didn't really want that. I think it was just ignorance. They didn't see it as that is what was happening. That's what they thought they needed for the story, but I think they could have done it in a far better way. And I'm hoping they learn from it. Now, whether they'll be able to fix this, because as I unfortunately previously announced as well, Season 8, which is coming out in November, is going to be the last season for Voltron. Whether they're going to be able to fix what they did or what they broke in this season, in this particular regard, I don't know. But I just wanted to kind of mention that because it is a current story going around. Like if you do a search for Voltron, it is one of the top Google hits. The show is excellent. The show is superb. I really enjoy everything about it. I just wanted to kind of point out that there is this kind of backlash going on, and unlike a lot of fan backlash, I believe this one is justified. So I just wanted to mention that as well. But if you do want to watch the show, I still recommend watching it. As I said, there's 7 seasons worth of show to watch. It sounds like a lot, but a lot of those seasons are quite short, and it's just entertaining the entire time. You have plenty of time before November to get all of it watched for the final season, and you can watch it and cry with me, if you like.
I think it's a really interesting thing, to be fair, when some of your most precious creators get things wrong.
Yeah.
It's something that happened with the Rat Queens, which is a comic series that I absolutely love. But it's going to be interesting to see how they come out of it. So I hope people are rooting for them instead of wanting to push them further down. I think supporting people through these.
Not to keep dredging up stories that we've talked about before, but this is exactly why I was so annoyed with the James Gunn situation with Marvel. Yeah. People make mistakes.
People change. People grow.
Everyone does. Everyone makes mistakes. It's not the making of the mistake that's the issue. It's whether or not you learn from it. That's always been my sort of philosophy. Like, people make mistakes against you all the time. But if you point it out and then they apologize, they take that on board and they change, then that's all you can really ask of people. That's what happened with James Gunn, and he was still fired for it.
Yeah.
And in this case, that's what happened to this writer, and he's immediately put his hands up. He hasn't shirked it. He's apologized to the fans, saying that this is not what they intended to do, and they hope to do better in the future. I mean, that's all you can really ask of people. And this is one of those situations. I'm not aware of the Rat Queen one, but again, I'm sure it's going to be one of those situations where if people put their hands up, admit that they made a mistake, apologize for it, take whatever advice or whatever kind of lesson they need to learn from it on board and move on from there and improve. That's all you can really ask of people.
It's true.
Anyway, now to move on to
we're so deep.
Even more serious topics. We're going to move on to our last topic of the show. Elle, you have played Time Stories.
I have.
What is that?
Oh my goodness. So in my search for more board games to fill my time with, we've got a couple of mates that we'll regularly play board games with, and Time Stories is something that has been sat on the game shelf since about March. So 2 weeks ago we took the wrapper off and sat down and played. Time Stories is a board game experience where you are playing as these time traveling agents. So you're sent to a point in time to fix a temporal distortion, or like a rip or tear in the fabric and makeup of time. In the specific scenario that we played through, we got sent to an asylum. You go through different puzzles. You have a set amount of time or turns in which to explore the place or the setup and try and figure out the solution to the problem at hand. It is a fantastic game to spend a couple of hours with. It has very limited replayability because of the way that the puzzles and the actual story is set up and that you work through. Because of that, if you play it through again, you'd know the answer to the puzzles and you'd know how to progress as fast as possible. So I only think it'll be good for one playthrough. But that one playthrough, goodness gracious, what an absolute whale of a time.
Do they have plans for any expansions or anything to add new content?
They do have expansions. I would go out and find out what expansion that we do have. We've not played it yet. But I think you get those extensions, those bolt-ons, different stories and different missions to go on. It has a very interesting setup. Your scenario cards get read out and it's quite narrative. I do love a bit of a story. So you get kind of walked through who you are as like agents and what you're going to do. You select a person in the scenario to inhabit who has specific skills or talents, things that they can do which are better than other characters or worse than other characters. So the group of you work as a team in inhabiting different bodies in order to fix the issue. It's amazing. Oh,
sounds really good. So this is a recommend from you, I guess.
Definitely. I'm so sad that it is a one-shot playthrough, but it is such a memorable game. I think it's worth it for the amount of fun that you'll have. Even if that fun is short-lived, it's the making of that memory which is just phenomenal.
Nice. Excellent. Well, thank you for that. And as I mentioned, those are all of our topics. So thank you very much for listening. We have some shout outs. Jo, do you want to cover those?
Yeah, sure. So big thank yous and shout outs to David Long, Will Driver, Gabriel and Gleazy Boy.
Excellent news. Thanks everybody for listening. This has been episode 146 of Geek Speak. If you'd like to get in touch with us, you can go on to the website BigRedBarel.com and you can comment on the post for this particular episode, or you can go onto the forums and chat to us there. There's also a Discord link on the homepage of the site, so you can chat to us on Discord. We do respond every so often when I notice that there's new comments there. It's not often, but I do respond. Also, you can contact us on Facebook. We're on facebook.com/BigRedBarel. We're also on Twitter at BigRedBarel. Make sure to use the hashtag GeekSpeak, and that way we'll be able to find your tweets more easily. You can also chat to us directly on there. My Twitter handle is Diarmuid_S.
I'm at Pixel Ritual.
And I'm at Escaping IRL.
Nice. If you want to leave us an iTunes review, that would help us out a lot, and we will love you and kiss you and hug you and squeeze you forever.
Die will, I will not.
Okay, fine. I'll do all the loving.
Diarmuid can do all the hugging. Yeah.
Okay. Also, Tuesdays are a Tuesday, and that means every Tuesday we go to Tabletop Tuesday.
Yeah.
And we have a board game night in Loading Barn, Dalston. Every week there's a feature game. I have no idea what the feature game is.
You know what?
Usually we rely on Alex to do this. I've no idea what the feature game is, but every week there's a feature game, a new one, and they're usually awesome. If you go along, you play, you don't have to win, you play, you let the guys know, and then you're entered into a prize draw to win the game. Definitely worth it.
Yeah.
As I mentioned, I don't know what this week's game is going to be, but I'm sure it's going to be worth your time.
And it's just a nice hangout with similar-minded friends who like to play board games. So
it is indeed.
Nothing to lose. Go along.
All right. I'm hoping I haven't forgotten anything.
I think we've been good. I think that's all good.
With that, I've been Diarmuid.
I've been Jo.
I've been Elle.
And we bid you goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
I think Jo, or I think one of you guys needs to say butts.
Someone needs to say butts. Okay.
Butts.
Or else Alex is going to record a quick butts of her own and put it in here.
Butts. Butts.
Cheeky.
It's not the same. It's not the same.
No, it isn't. It isn't. It's weird. It's weird.
your ears are quite welcome.
For the podcasting goodness that you just heard,
why not roll on over
to BigRedBarel.com
for more podcasts,
news, reviews, and videos from the biggest, reddest site on the internet, BigRedBarel.com.